the ancient texts, they are called the sons of God, beings who saw the daughters of men, desired them, and took them as wives. But many modern scholars dismiss this completely. They say it's symbolic, myth, 1. Allegory, a story, not history. But if that's true, then everything built on it begins to unravel, because from that union came the Nephilim. From their corruption came the judgment. From that judgment came the flood. And from the flood came the reset of humanity. Noah, his sons, and the generations that followed, leading to the nations, and eventually, the 12 tribes of Israel. So if the beginning is only metaphor, where does the rest stand? And there's another problem. If these were angels, as many have believed, then how did they do it? Because angels, by their nature, are not supposed to be physical, not supposed to reproduce. So what were they? Not myth, not quite what we've been told, but something far more difficult to explain. The Watchers and what they brought, not all of them did the same thing. Some changed the world directly, others shaped it more subtly, and some are only remembered by name. Azazel did not simply teach. He changed the direction of humanity. He introduced weapons, the forging of swords, knife, shields, armor. Before this, violence existed, but it was limited. After Azazel, violence became efficient, organized, deliberate. He also taught ornamentation, adornment, the altering of appearance, not for survival, but for desire, for status, for identity. What was internal began to be replaced by what was seen. Because of this, he is often blamed more than the others, not for starting the fall, but for accelerating it. Semyaza was not known for teaching. He was known for leadership. He brought them together, removed hesitation, ensured unity, because without him, the descent may not have happened at all. He did not change humanity directly. He made sure the others could. Armoros is linked to forbidden knowledge, specifically, the breaking of boundaries. He taught humanity things that were not meant to be known. How to undo what had been established. How to interfere with order. His influence was not visible like weapons, but structural, subtle, and long-lasting. Barakiel is associated with knowledge of the heavens, the observation of the skies, the movement of celestial bodies. What had once been something distant became something studied, measured, understood, but without context. Knowledge of the heavens did not elevate humanity. It only added to what they could not control. Kokabil is also linked to the stars, but not just observation. Interpretation, meaning, the idea that what is above controls what is below. This shifted human thinking from survival to influence, from living to attempting control. Penamiwe taught awareness, the understanding of good and evil, the ability to recognize difference, choice, consequence. But awareness without wisdom is dangerous, because once humans could distinguish, they could also justify, rationalize. Corruption spread faster, not because people didn't know better, but because they did. Gadriel is associated with deception, not force, not power, but influence. He altered perception, introduced the idea that truth could be bent, changed, reinterpreted. Once truth becomes unstable, everything built on it becomes unstable too. Kazdeja is linked with harm, destructive knowledge, pain, affliction, things that do not build, things that weaken. What he introduced was not visible like weapons, but felt. Suffering increased, and humanity had no way to counter it. Yekon did not teach tools. He influenced decisions. He is remembered as the one who led others astray, a persuader, a voice behind action. He did not change the world directly. He changed those who would. The others there were many more. Names are recorded: Sariel, Ramiel, Enel, Ezekiel, Dawn, Oracle, Azael, Turiel, Semapaziel, Satariel, Turil, and others, but no specific teachings are given, only that they descended, only that they took part, and that matters, because it means the knowledge we know was not all that was given. There were other teachings, other influences, other changes, lost, unrecorded, or never fully understood. But their presence alone tells us this: the transformation of humanity was not caused by one, or two, or even a few. It was widespread, deliberating, and complete. Taking human wives, what followed was not symbolic. It was not distant. It was not misunderstood. It was direct. These accounts can be found in the Book of Enoch and in Genesis. The sons of God saw the daughters of men, and they desired them, not from afar, not in passing, but with intent. They did not return to where they came from. They remained. They took wives, lived among humanity, walked among them, spoke with them, taught them, and whatever boundary once existed between heaven and earth was no longer there. This was not a moment. It was a shift, and once it began, it did not stop. The Nephilim, the result was something new. The Nephilim. These accounts can be found in the Book of Enoch and in Genesis. They were not like men, and they were not like those who came before them. They were greater in size, greater in strength, but not greater in restraint. They grew rapidly, dominated completely. What began as influence became control. What began as presence became rule. They consumed the resources of men: food, diet, land, livestock. Nothing was enough. And when the earth could no longer sustain them, they turned, not just against creation, but against humanity itself. Violence was no longer an act. It became the order of the world. Corruption of the earth expanded. The corruption was not isolated. It was total. These accounts can be found in the Book of Enoch and in Genesis. The earth was filled with violence, not in one place. Everywhere. Structure broke down. Order collapsed. Knowledge was no longer used to build. It was used to dominate, to destroy, to control. Bloodshed became common, not shocking, not rare, but expected. What had once been human was changing, and the world itself reflected it. The people, the systems of life, everything began to fracture. The cry of humanity at first. It was quiet, individual, scattered. But suffering does not stay silent forever. These accounts can be found in the Book of Enoch. The cries grew, not from one voice, but from many, across lands, across generations, across a world that could no longer endure what it had become. This was not complaint. It was desperation. It rose beyond language, beyond place, beyond the earth itself, and it reached something higher, something watching, and it was heard. Divine intervention. The response did not come from man. It came from above. These accounts can be found in the Book of Enoch. The archangels were sent. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, not as observers, but as witnesses. They saw what the earth had become, not as it was intended, but as it had been changed, corrupted, distorted. The decision was not immediate, but it was inevitable. What had been allowed to grow could no longer continue. Judgment was not reaction. It was correction. Punishment of the watchers. Those who descended did not escape consequence. These accounts can be found in the Book of Enoch. They were bound, not temporarily, not symbolically, but completely removed from influence, from movement, from the world they had entered. They were cast down into darkness, separated from the earth above, and from the heavens they had left. They remain, not destroyed, not gone, but held, waiting, for a time that has not yet come. The flood, the final act, was not selective. It was total. These accounts can be found in Genesis. The decision was made, not to repair, but to reset. Humanity, as it had become, could not continue. The corruption was too deep, too widespread, too complete. Noah was chosen, not for strength, not for power, but for preservation. The ark was built, not quickly, not easily, but deliberately, a structure of survival in a world already collapsing. Then the waters came, not as a storm, but as an ending. The land disappeared, the noise stopped, the violence ended. Everything that had filled the earth was removed, and when it was over, there was silence, a new beginning, a reset. But beneath it all, what had been bound remained.
They were called the sons of God. Many say they were angels, but the text never once says they had wings. Not once. So, what descended? What stood among men? Took wives, and changed the course of the world? Angels? Or something else entirely? Something that came from above, but was never meant to be here. Because if they were not angels, then what we're looking at is not myth. It's something far older, far more real, and far more difficult to explain.